Last year, I bought 11 used cars, and this year I plan to buy about 15 more. In this video, I'm going to be outlining some of my best tips and tricks that I use and that I encourage you to use as well in order to ensure that you do not get screwed over whenever you're buying a used car in 2023. The first mistake that I want to talk about is one that I often see with first-time car buyers, or alternatively, people that don't know a whole lot about cars and thus they're intimidated by the entire process. And that is the mistake of relying on your car salesman to teach you about the car that you should buy, or to help you in the discovery process of determining which car you should buy. Your car salesman is not your friend. Let me repeat that. Your car salesman is not, under any circumstances, your friend. A car salesman is there for one purpose and one purpose only, and that purpose is to get you to buy a car so that they can make their dealership money and so that they can collect a commission. And sure, there are some good car salesmen out there that actually do want to help their car buyers get into the right car for their personal situation, but there are plenty of others out there that are absolutely horrendous and will do anything they can do in order to get you to spend some money. And to be honest, it's not worth your finances in determining which one of those two car salesmen is the one that you're dealing with. Before you step foot into a car dealership to buy a car, you should know the exact type of car you're looking for, the exact trim level. You should know that the dealership has the car you're looking for, at what price point they're selling it for, and you should have all of those details worked out beforehand. The day that you're looking to buy a car should not be the day that you're looking at the car for the first time in person or the first time that you're actually taking that car for a test drive. I don't care how good the car salesman says that the car is. If you're going through the due diligence process and trying to figure out if you like a car that you're considering buying, absolutely go to the dealership, give it a test drive, talk to a salesman, sit in the car, feel it, make sure that it's the right fit for you. But then once you've done that, go back home and think about the purchase for a few days and make sure that the car is the right one for you. Do not hastily jump into any car purchase simply because you're excited about it. And of course, pairing this in-person due diligence with some online research is always your best bet. Here are some of my favorite tools in order to accomplish this. First is YouTube. You can learn a lot by watching review channels and hearing what YouTubers are saying about the car that you're thinking about purchasing. Doug DeMuro is a classic reviewer that does a great job, but oftentimes I'll also just type into YouTube XYZ car review and then I'll watch a handful of the ones that come up. Another great tool is Car Gurus. This will allow for you to gauge price trends on that car. And of course, using third-party platforms like Cars.com, AutoTrader, or even Facebook can give you an idea of how much these cars are actually selling for. And if you're wanting some industry data, something like Manheim can give you a really good gauge of the market as a whole. The next tip that I have is to simply walk away, or at the very least, be prepared to do so if you're put in a position to where you feel like you need to. At the end of the day, a car salesman needs you more than you need them. There will always be a new deal, a new sale, a new car to look at, but there isn't another one of you that's ready to buy right then and there. And if you feel as though negotiations just simply aren't going in your favor and they're not where you want them to be, then simply walk away. You would be surprised at how many salesmen change their tune the moment that you say that you're simply going to walk. Oftentimes, they'll tell you that they can in fact do that deal, they may let you leave and then call you a few hours later, and there is of course a chance that the car salesman will not step back and that you will have to permanently walk away. But that's okay. Now, this tactic only really works if you're being realistic with car negotiations. If you're asking for 50% off on a hot used car, they're not going to give that to you even if you walk away from the deal. But if you feel as though the deal that you're offering and what you're trying to negotiate is a really solid deal for that car, then absolutely use walking away as a negotiating tool. And while in some cases this may simply result in no deal at all, in other cases it could result in a really great deal that's in your favor. And that's okay. There are more cars where that one came from. And that brings me to my next point, which is the entire process of negotiating. I am always surprised whenever I hear about people who simply don't negotiate on buying a car. They either don't feel it's worth their time, they don't feel like the dealership or the seller will budge on the price, or they simply don't know how to go about doing it. You should always, without exception, negotiate on a car purchase. If you're not, you're simply leaving free money on the table. Not only should you negotiate every single car purchase that you make in your life, but you should also have a predetermined negotiating tactic that you've laid out in your mind before you even step foot into the dealership. For example, whenever I go buy a used car, I know the price that the car is listed for, but I'll also have a maximum price in my head, and I will not go above that maximum price. And oftentimes, that maximum price is quite a bit lower than the listed price. I will under no circumstances go above that max price. In addition to having the listing price and the maximum price, I also have the price that I want to pay for the car, the price that I would be really excited about if I was able to secure it for that amount. And whenever I go buy a car, whether that's private party or if it's at a dealership, the very first offer that I'll make on that vehicle is typically one that's even lower than the price that I'd even be happy paying. This way I can leave some room to go up in price during negotiations. When I go and buy cars with my husband HP, we each play our own individual roles. HP is the ex-car salesman that is extremely friendly but also knows how to navigate the sales process. He makes sure to be extremely nice to the car salesman, and there have been a number of times where HP will even go as far as to bring the car salesman lunch or a Red Bull or a drink from Sonic. In fact, last time HP and I went and bought a car at a dealership, he got along so well with the car salesman that they ended up exchanging numbers by the end of it. Whereas I, on the other hand, play the role of the silent partner. I remain relatively emotionless the entire time. I ask questions when needed, but for the most part, I just sit there in silence and I listen to the car salesman. But whenever it comes to the finances, that's typically when I'll chime in. Basically, any enthusiasm that HP brings to the situation with his friendliness is almost immediately shot down with my lack of enthusiasm. HP and I have found that this dynamic works really well with us because the reality is, if you're a jerk, if you're unfriendly, that's not going to help your situation. Whereas if you are very friendly and pleasant to deal with, the dealership and the car salesman may be more inclined to work with you. But of course, this is a fine line and you can't be too friendly because that leaves you susceptible to getting taken advantage of, which is where I come in. It really is sort of a bad cop, good cop situation, and it has worked really well over the years. Whenever you're negotiating, make sure that you're realistic. There's nothing that will kill a deal faster than some absurd out of left field offer, but you also want to make sure that you're still a bit aggressive. It really is a fine line. Again, this is something that you'll be able to get some more clarity on as you do research on what price these cars are actually selling for, and you can base your negotiations off of that data. It's also always a good idea to find different reasons as to why your lower price is justified. For example, maybe the tires are a little bit worn and they're going bald. Maybe the car only comes with one key instead of two. Maybe the interior is dirtier than you anticipated. Finding reasons as to why you feel as though a lower price is justified is always a good thing, even if you have to nitpick here and there. And of course, always pay attention to those miscellaneous fees. Things like doc fees, required dealer add-ons, make sure to pay attention to your interest rates and warranties. These are always negotiable, even if the car dealership would like for you to believe otherwise. The point is, negotiate hard and don't let your salesman bully you. There are also some additional tactics that you can use in order to get some add-ons that may not have an actual monetary value. For example, one thing that HP loves to do at dealerships is negotiate a full tank of gas or new floor mats into the car that we're buying. This is great because oftentimes the salesman doesn't need to get clearance from his manager in order to do these types of things, so it's a really great way to get some bonus on top of the car that you probably would have purchased anyways. Another incredibly important thing to keep in mind is FOMO, or fear of missing out. FOMO applies to so many other things other than just car purchases, but it's something that I see all the time in the automotive sales industry. It's this idea that if you don't buy this car today, you'll never get the chance to get that exact same deal on that car again. And because of that, people buy a car simply out of fear of missing out. I'm seeing this a lot right now with electric vehicles specifically due to federal incentives to buy an electric car. People feel as though they need to buy one ASAP in order to lock in those federal tax credits, and I personally think that this is a big mistake. I don't think you should ever buy a car right now simply because you fear that you won't have the opportunity to do so later. Buying anything with FOMO in the back of your mind is always a bad idea because it takes your critical thinking and it throws it out the window. And the thing is, the FOMO logic that you oftentimes use in order to justify the purchase simply aren't true a lot of the time. I have a personal rule that the moment that a car salesman or any type of salesman start using FOMO as a sales tactic, I will immediately tap out. So the moment that a car salesman tells me, hey, you need to buy this car today or else you're not going to have access to this car in the future, I will typically say, okay, that's fine, and then I'll leave. I don't want to be given an ultimatum whenever I'm making a large purchase. I think it's a sleazy sales tactic, and I think it can leave a lot of people susceptible to making really bad financial decisions. And I also think it can oftentimes lead you to settling for a deal that may have not been that good. And last but not least, and this may be a controversial one, is following trends. I think that this is overall a mistake and can lead you to being really disappointed with your car purchase in the future. I spend a lot of time researching cars, looking at cars that are available today, ones that were available in the past, and ones that should be available in the future. And I am growing increasingly more and more concerned with the way that cars and the technology associated with them are evolving so quickly. For example, I have a 1997 Toyota 4Runner that I absolutely adore, and whenever I look at my car, which is 25 years old, and I compare it to an older but still newer car like my dad's 2006 Toyota Tundra, for example, I look at these two cars and they're not vastly different from one another. Sure, you can tell that one is a bit older than the other, and sure, they are 9 years apart, but whenever it comes to the technology that's offered between these two cars, they aren't that much different. But today, with some of the new cars that are coming out, the technology is evolving so quickly that in many ways, you can tell the difference between a 2018 car and a 2023 car. Of course, this depends on the exact make and model car that we're talking about. I think for a long time, technology in cars was relatively slow moving, and the technology that did change within these cars changed in a way that made it relatively easy to adapt your car to these new standards. For example, adding Bluetooth into a 25-year-old car, or even a backup camera. In recent months, I even added heated seats to mine. But today, between self-driving, AI technology, subscription heated seats, I'm worried that we're heading into an almost iPhone-esque era for cars, where you're almost forced to upgrade a new car every few years simply because yours starts to degrade in quality. Similar to how I'm forced to buy an iPhone every 2 to 3 years because after the 2-year mark, this battery starts to die like crazy. At the end of the day, buying a car for personal reasons is always a great decision, but if you're choosing a specific car because it is a hot fad or it's the newest, greatest thing, I think that you're going to end up leaving yourself disappointed because come this time next year, there's going to be a new, greater thing available. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.